the ancient gift the morning sun cast long shadows across the Earth defense. Command Center, as Commander Alina Vasquez stared at the holographic display floating before her desk. 300 years of human history rotated slowly in blue light, marking every major event from the Great Plague of 21572, humanity's first contact with alien civilizations just 50 years ago. But today, something had changed everything they thought they knew about their past. Dr. Marcus Chen burst through the office doors, his usually neat appearance disheveled from hours of frantic research. His dark eyes blazed with excitement and disbelief as he clutched a datapad to his chest, like it contained the secrets of the universe. Alina had never seen the quiet historian so animated. "Commander, you need to see this," Marcus said, his voice trembling with urgency. "Everything we know about the Great Plague, about how humanity survived it, we were wrong. We were completely wrong." Alina gestured to the chair across from her desk. Marcus had been the Earth Defense Command's chief historical analyst for 8 years, and she had never known him to make dramatic statements without solid evidence. The Great Plague had been humanity's darkest hour, a bioengineered virus that had killed nearly 2 billion people before mysteriously burning itself out in 2159. Every child learned about it in school as humanity's greatest survival story. "Slow down, Marcus. Tell me what you found." Marcus activated his datapad, and the holographic display shifted to show medical records, genetic analyses, and satellite data from 3 centuries ago. The information swirled around them like a digital storm of evidence that humanity had overlooked for generations. "I was researching anomalies in our historical archives for the new cadets when I found these records buried in the deep storage vaults," Marcus explained, his words coming fast. "Commander, the plague didn't just burn out naturally. Something stopped it. Something from outside Earth." Alina leaned forward, her military training keeping her expression neutral despite the implications racing through her mind. "Outside Earth. Marcus, we didn't make contact with aliens until 2357. Are you suggesting ... "I'm not suggesting, Commander. I'm telling you." Marcus manipulated the display, showing genetic sequences that seemed to dance with impossible complexity. "Look at these viral samples from the final days of the plague. The virus didn't evolve or mutate naturally. It was systematically dismantled by an external agent, a cure that was beyond anything human science could have developed, even today. The genetic patterns were beautiful and terrifying in their precision." Alina could see how the mysterious cure had taken apart the plague virus piece by piece, like watching a master engineer disassemble a deadly machine with tools humanity couldn't even comprehend. The work was so advanced that it made their current medical technology look like stone knives. "There's more," Marcus continued, pulling up atmospheric readings from orbital stations that had barely existed in 2159. These sensors detected massive energy signatures in Earth's upper atmosphere during the final week of the plague. The signatures matched no known human technology from that time or even now. Something was up there, Commander. Something was watching us die, and then it decided to help. Alina stood and walked to the large window overlooking the sprawling metropolis of New Geneva. The city stretched to the horizon, home to nearly 15 million people who existed because their ancestors had somehow survived humanity's brush with extinction. Every person down there owed their life to a mystery that had just become infinitely more complex. "Have you shared this with anyone else?" she asked. "Not yet. I wanted to bring it to you first." Marcus hesitated, then added, "Commander, There's something else. The energy signatures. I ran them through our current alien contact database. They match readings we've detected from only one known species. Alina turned back to face him, already knowing what he was going to say, but hoping she was wrong. The implications were staggering, and they went far beyond historical curiosity. The Velkorians, Marcus said quietly. The Velkorians were one of the oldest alien civilizations humanity had encountered. They were ancient beyond human understanding, with technology that bordered on the magical and a perseverance that made them mysterious even by alien standards. In 50 years of contact, they had shared little about themselves and had shown no interest in human affairs. They were polite, distant, and seemingly indifferent to the younger races struggling to make their mark on the galaxy. Alina felt the weight of revelation settling on her shoulders like a lead blanket. The Velkorians saved us 300 years ago, and we never knew. It appears so. And Commander, if I'm right about this, it means they've been watching humanity far longer than we ever suspected. They saw us facing extinction, broke their own laws of non-interference, and saved our entire species without asking for anything in return. They never even told us they existed. The implications were overwhelming. Every human alive was the descendant of people who should have died centuries ago. Humanity's expansion into space, their contributions to galactic civilization, their art and music and literature that had begun to find appreciation among alien cultures. None of it would have existed without this ancient act of secret kindness. Alina activated her command console and began pulling up current intelligence reports on Velkorian space. What she found made her blood run cold. For the past 6 months, long-range sensors had been detecting massive stellar instabilities in the Velkorian home system. Their ancient sun was entering an unprecedented collapse phase that their own technology seemed unable to stop. Marcus, look at this. She transferred the stellar data to the main display. The Velkorian sun is dying. Not in millions of years, but right now, their entire civilization is facing extinction within the next few months. Marcus stared at the data with growing horror. How many Velkorians are there? Intelligence estimates put their population at around 8 million, spread across 12 worlds in their home system. But they're not like us, Marcus. They can't just pack up and move to another star. Their entire physiology is adapted to the specific radiation of their ancient sun. Without it, they'll die. The office fell silent except for the soft hum of the holographic displays. Alina could see Marcus putting the pieces together, arriving at the same conclusion that was crystallizing in her own mind. Humanity owed a debt that was 3 centuries old and 8 billion lives deep. What do we do? Marcus asked. Alina was already reaching for her secure communication device. We pay our debt. Alert the Earth Council that I'm requesting an emergency session. Full cabinet, all fleet commanders, and every xenobiologist we have on staff. Commander, with respect, what can we possibly do? The Velkorians have technology thousands of years ahead of ours. If they can't solve their stellar collapse, how can we help? Alina paused in her dialing, looking out at the city again. Down there, people were going about their daily lives, completely unaware that their existence was the result of alien compassion. They were living borrowed time that had been gifted to them by beings who asked for nothing in return. I don't know yet, she admitted, but I know this. When someone saves your entire species and asks for nothing in return, you don't abandon them when they need help, even if it seems impossible. especially if it seems impossible. Within hours, the emergency session of the Earth Council had been called to order. The great chamber filled with humanity's leaders, scientists, military, commanders, and diplomats. Alina stood at the center podium, with Marcus beside her displaying the evidence that had shattered their understanding of human history. The reaction was explosive. Voices rose in amazement, disbelief, and growing determination as the implications sank in. Admiral Zhong Wei, the gruff commander of the Earth Defense Fleet, was the first to speak when the chamber finally quieted. "Commander Vasquez, I've reviewed your evidence, and I believe your conclusions are correct. The question now is what we're prepared to do about it." President Sarah Martinez leaned forward from her seat at the head of the council chamber. "Admiral, what are our capabilities? Realistically, what could we offer a civilization that advanced?" Admiral Zhong's weathered face was grim but determined. "Madam President, the Valkorians may have superior technology, but they're facing a problem that might not have a technological solution. Sometimes the answer isn't about having the best tools. Sometimes it's about having the will to use whatever tools you have in ways no one else has tried." Dr. Yuki Tanaka, Earth's leading xeno, activated her own display showing detailed scans of Valkorian physiology from decades of limited contact. "The President raises a valid point about our limitations, but I've been thinking about this differently. The Valkorians are dying because they're adapted to their specific stellar radiation. What if the solution isn't stopping the stellar collapse, but adapting the Valkorians to survive it?" "Genetic modification," President Martinez asked. "More than that, complete biological reconstruction. It would be the most ambitious project in human history. But our medical technology has advanced tremendously since first contact. We've learned to adapt human biology for life on dozens of different worlds. The principles are the same, just on a vastly larger scale." Alina felt a spark of hope ignite in her chest. "Dr. Tanaka, are you saying we could potentially save them?" "I'm saying we could try. It would require the entire resources of human civilization, every medical facility, every research station, every transport ship we have. We'd be attempting to evacuate and biologically adapt 8 million aliens in a matter of months. It's never been tried, and the chance of failure is enormous." The chamber erupted in discussion again. Alina could see the fear and excitement warring on every face. This wasn't just about repaying a debt anymore. This was about proving what kind of species humanity had become in the centuries since their own brush with extinction. President Martinez called for order. "The risks are clear, but so is our moral obligation. 300 years ago, the Valkorians saved every human life on Earth. Today, we have the opportunity to return that favor." Admiral Zhong stood. "Madam President, I volunteered the entire Earth Defense Fleet for this mission. Every ship, every crew member who's willing to risk everything for beings who saved us when we couldn't save ourselves." The vote was unanimous. Humanity would attempt the impossible rescue of the alien species that had once rescued them. As the council's session ended and preparations began, Alina felt the weight of history settling around her. They were about to embark on the greatest humanitarian mission in human history, racing against time and impossible odds to repay a debt that most people didn't even know existed. The journey would test everything humanity had learned about courage, sacrifice, and the bonds that connect all living beings across the vast darkness of space. And somewhere in the dying light of an ancient sun, 8 million Valkorians waited for salvation they didn't even know was coming. The impossible journey, the largest fleet in human history, gathered at Lunar Station, casting shadows across the ancient lunar surface like metallic clouds blocking out the stars. 500 ships of every class and conflagration humanity had ever built floated in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming with the modifications that had been installed in just 3 weeks of round-the-clock work. Medical bays had been expanded, life support systems upgraded, and cargo holds converted into temporary living spaces for the 8 million refugees they hoped to save. Commander Alina Vasquez stood on the bridge of the flagship, U.S. Determination, watching her crew make final preparations for a journey that would take them further from Earth than any human had ever traveled. The ship hummed with nervous energy as officers and specialists who had never worked together tried to coordinate the most complex rescue operation in galactic history. Captain Zara Aroshid, pilot of humanity's fastest scout ship, appeared on the main communications screen from her vessel at the edge of the formation. Her usually calm demeanor showed cracks of tension as she delivered her reconnaissance report. "Commander, I've completed the advanced survey of Valkorian space. The situation is worse than we thought." Alina felt her stomach tighten. They had been preparing for the worst-case scenario, but Zara's expression suggested that even their pessimistic estimates had been too optimistic. "Show me." The bridge's holographic display lit up with star charts and sensor readings that painted a picture of cosmic devastation. The Valkorian sun, once a stable giant that had warmed their worlds for millions of years, was collapsing in ways that defied conventional stellar physics. Solar flares erupted in impossible patterns, gravity wells shifted without warning, and the very fabric of space around the system seemed to be tearing itself apart. "The stellar collapse has accelerated beyond all predictions," Zara reported. "We have maybe 2 months before their sun goes completely dark, but the radiation storms are already killing their outer worlds. Commander, I've detected massive refugee movements from their frontier colonies toward their inner planets, but their transport capacity is limited. They're trying to save as many as they can, but they can't save them all," Alina finished grimly. "How many are we looking at? Best estimate, maybe 3 million have already died from radiation exposure. The remaining 5 million are concentrated on their homeworld and 2 inner planets. But those worlds are becoming uninhabitable. Fast. And Commander, there's something else." Zara paused, and Alina could see her struggling with whatever she had discovered in the dying Valkorian system. "What is it, Captain? They know we're coming." The bridge fell silent. Alina had hoped they could approach quietly, assess the situation, and begin evacuation procedures before the Valkorians fully understood what humanity was attempting. The element of surprise might have made the initial contact easier, avoiding potentially complicated diplomatic negotiations while people were dying. "How do they know? I'm not sure. But when I reached the edge of their space, I received a transmission from Ambassador Kethmore, their senior diplomatic representative. He wants to speak with you directly." Alina nodded grimly. Kethmore was one of the few Valkorians that humanity had extensive contact with over the past 50 years. He was ancient, even by their standards, with a reputation for wisdom and careful consideration of interspecies relations. If anyone could speak for the dying Valkorian civilization, it would be him. "Put him through." The display shifted to show the interior of what appeared to be a Valkorian command center. The walls were covered with organic-looking patterns that pulsed with soft light, and the air itself seemed to shimmer with energy fields that human science barely understood. In the center of it all stood Ambassador Kate Moore, The Valkorians were tall and elegant, with pale blue skin that seemed to glow from within, and large silver eyes that held depths of intelligence that made humans feel young by comparison. Kethmore's appearance showed signs of the radiation sickness that was killing his people. His usually lustrous skin was dim, and his movements were careful and deliberate. "Commander Vasquez," he said in his melodic voice, speaking perfect English with just a hint of an accent that suggested sounds human throats couldn't make. "We have been expecting you." Alina felt a chill run down her spine. "Ambassador, with respect, how could you have been expecting us? We've maintained communication silence throughout our approach." Kethmore's expression might have been a smile on a human face, but on Valkorian features it conveyed something more complex. Pride, perhaps, mixed with profound sadness and something that might have been hope. "Commander, did you think we would not recognize the energy signatures of our own medical technology?" The implication hit Alina like a physical blow. You know that we know what you did for us. We have always known that someday one of the younger races might discover the truth about their past. We hoped it would be humanity. Species has always shown a remarkable capacity for, how do you say it, paying forward kindness received. Dr. Marcus Chen, who had been silent during the exchange, stepped forward. "Ambassador, why didn't you ever tell us? 300 years we've wondered how we survived the Great Plague, and you could have simply told us." Kethmore's large eyes focused on Marcus with an intensity that seemed to see through him to something beyond. "Dr. Chen, kindness given with the expectation of return is not kindness, it is commerce. We helped your species because it was right to do so, not because we expected payment. That you have come here now, risking everything to help us when you owe us nothing, proves that we chose correctly to save humanity." Alina felt the weight of those words settling on her shoulders. They had come here to pay a debt, but the Valkorians had never considered themselves creditors. They had saved humanity as an act of pure compassion, and now humanity was responding with the same spirit. It was, she realized, what separated civilization from chaos in the darkness between stars. "Ambassador, we're here to evacuate your people. Our medical teams believe they can adapt your biology to survive without your original solar radiation. It won't be easy, and we can't guarantee success, but we have to try." Kethmore was quiet for a long moment, and Alina could see him communicating with others outside the range of the visual pickup. When he finally spoke, his voice carried the authority of someone speaking for an entire dying civilization. "Commander, we accept your offer, but you must understand the scope of what you are attempting. Our people have been adapted to this system for over 1,000,000 years. The biological modifications required will be extensive, and many of us may not survive. The process, are you prepared for that responsibility?" Alina looked around the bridge at her crew, seeing the same determination in their eyes that she felt in her own heart. "Ambassador, 300 years ago, your people took responsibility for saving an entire species without knowing if we deserve it. Today, we're returning that trust. We'll save everyone we can, and we'll mourn everyone we can't, but we won't abandon anyone." The evacuation began immediately. Human ships swarmed into the Valkyrian system like antibodies rushing to fight an infection. The outer planets were already dead, their surfaces scoured by radiation storms that made them uninhabitable for any known form of life. But the inner worlds still held millions of Valkorians, and every minute of delay meant more deaths from radiation exposure. Captain Al-Rashid led the first wave of evacuation ships to the Valkorian homeworld, a place that had never been seen. by human eyes before today. What she found there left her crew speechless with awe and horror. Cities that looked like living crystals stretched across continents, their organic architecture pulsing with dying light as their power systems failed. In the gathering darkness, millions of Velkorians waited with the patience of a species that had lived through cosmic ages. "It's beautiful and terrible at the same time," Zara reported back to the flagship. "Their cities are dying, but they're dying with dignity. No panic, no chaos. They're loading onto our transports like they're going on a planned journey rather than fleeing for their lives." The medical challenges became apparent immediately. Human doctors worked alongside Velkorian healers to develop the genetic modifications needed for survival, but the complexity was staggering. Every Velkorian would need to be essentially rebuilt from the cellular level up. Their entire physiology adapted to survive in environments their species had never encountered. Dr. Sarah Kim, head of the medical team, established treatment centers. "On every transport ship, we're attempting something that should take decades of research and testing," she reported to Alina. "We're doing it in real time with people's lives hanging in the balance. Some of them won't survive the process." "How many?" Alina asked, though she wasn't sure she wanted to know the answer. "Best case scenario, we save maybe 70%. Worst case, Commander, I don't want to think about worst case." The evacuation continued around the clock. Human crews worked without sleep, loading Velkorians onto transports that were already overcrowded beyond safe limits. The medical ships struggled to keep up with the demand for genetic modification procedures. Supply lines stretched to the breaking point as humanity poured everything it had into saving beings they had never met. Then something unexpected began to happen. Other alien species started arriving in the system. The first were the Altarians, the same traders who had become humanity's first alien trading partners. Captain Veltar, of the merchant vessel, Starwind contacted the human fleet with a simple message. "The Velkorians once helped our colony survive a plague outbreak. We are here to return that favor." They were followed by the warrior species called the Corvani, whose massive battleships took up defensive positions around the evacuation fleet. "The Velkorians gave us medical aid during our civil war when no one else would help," their fleet commander explained. "Honor demands we protect them now." More ships kept arriving. Scientists from the Nexus Republic brought advanced medical equipment. The mysterious energy beings of the Outer Rim contributed power cores that increased the efficiency of the genetic modification process. Even species that humanity had barely heard of appeared at the edge of the system, offering whatever help they could provide. Alina realized that this was bigger than just humanity repaying a debt. The Velkorians had spent millions of years quietly helping other species, never asking for recognition or reward. Now, in their darkest hour, the galaxy was remembering their kindness. Ambassador Keth Moore appeared on her screen again, this time from aboard one of the evacuation transports. His condition had deteriorated, but his eyes held something that might have been wonder. "Commander, in all our long history, we never expected this. We helped others because it was right, not because we expected anything in return." "Sometimes," Alina replied, "the best debts are the ones nobody expects to be repaid." The final phase of the evacuation was the most dangerous. The Velkorian sun was entering its death throes, sending out waves of radiation that could destroy entire fleets. The rescue ships had to navigate through solar storms that tore at their hulls, while carrying precious cargo that couldn't be replaced. Captain Al-Rashid volunteered to lead the final evacuation run to retrieve the last group of Velkorians from their homeworld. Her ship, the fastest in the human fleet, dove through radiation storms that would have killed her crew if not for the modifications hastily installed by Velcorian engineers. "This is Starbird." Her voice crackled through the comm system. "I have the last transport loaded. 2,000 more souls heading home." As the evacuation fleet jumped to hyperspace, carrying 5 million Velcorian refugees toward new homes among the stars, Elena watched the dying sun collapse behind them. It was the end of an ancient civilization, but also the beginning of something new. The genetic modifications were successful for most of the refugees. Velcorians adapted to new worlds with the resilience of a species that had survived cosmic ages. They settled among dozens of different systems, their knowledge and wisdom becoming part of the growing galactic community. But the real victory wasn't measured in lives saved or debts repaid. It was measured in the example set for the galaxy. When the history of this time was written, it would record the day that multiple species came together to save another. Not for political gain or strategic advantage, but simply because it was. Right, Ambassador Kethmore recovered from his radiation sickness and serving as liaison between his people and their new neighbors. Visited Alina one final time before she returned to Earth. "Commander, there is something my people want you to understand. The galaxy is vast and often cold, but sometimes, when the darkness seems complete, someone lights a candle. 300 years ago, we lit a small candle for humanity. Today, you lit a star for us." Alina looked out at the stars, where Velcorian refugees were building new lives on new worlds, where human ships carried supplies to alien colonies, and where species that had never spoken before were working together to heal the wounds left by cosmic catastrophe. "Ambassador," she said, "I think we're all just learning that the light we share makes the darkness smaller for everyone." The debt had been repaid, but more importantly, the galaxy had learned that some things transcended species, politics, and time itself. Kindness given freely would always find its way home, even if it took 3 centuries to complete the journey.